What's going on, family? It's the entertainer, the motivator, the educator, Lucky Murray. And I'm back. I'm starting my new podcast in the Nosebleed with Lucky Murray. And today, I have Don Cunningham contribute to the Spurs Up Show. We talk and give you a full breakdown of the schedule. It's about an hour and a half long. So it's long content. So stick around, listen to it. You don't want to miss it. Great content. If you like what you see, hey man, first of all, give a thumbs up. Give a thumbs up because my man Don gives you some knowledge. Also, all his information will be in the description below. So you go follow him. And also subscribe to the channel. Because if you like these, we may be hitting you in the head with these every so often. So again, this is In the Nosebleed, Lucky Murray. This is my first podcast. Me and Don Cunningham of Hustle and Crow. We are talking about the full schedule of the South Carolina Gamecocks for 2021. So y'all stay tuned.
The entertainer, the motivator, the educator, Lucky Murray, back with another, just not a Gamecock news update. It's a little long form video situation. I am with my man Don. He is the contributor to the Spurs Up Show and also has his own situation. It's called Hustle and Crow. Don, how you doing today, my brother?
I'm all right, man. I appreciate you having me. Love the show.
Man, absolutely, man. We try to do a little something. I know a lot of people have been wanting me to do long form content. I've been busting people with the heads with the short form, and you hit me up on Facebook, and I was like, yo, I got to get you in. I love the perspective. One perspective I seen. I want to kind of talk about the schedule. A lot of people wanted me to do a breakdown of it, and I think I would give the people what I think in a minute, but I want before we break it down, Don, I want you kind of explain what you do, who you are, to the audience that may be watching on the screen right now.
Yeah, man. So, I got a side business. I've been a lot lifetime Gamecock fan, but I got a side business where I do a lot of the autograph signings for like local guys. So, like, if you see behind me, like I did one for Tavian Feaster, Hayden Hurst, some of the former Gamecocks, stuff like that. So that's kind of like got me really tied into some local athletes. And then, Chris Phillips from the Spurs Up Show kind of got me there to do some writing for like a lot of a breakdown of some of these games and whatnot for like basketball and other things like that. And so I've been doing that for a little while, helping them out. And then trying to get my own content rolling, man. And I got a big family and all that. So like it's difficult, I'm sure, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But definitely trying to get my own content out there rolling. So just been dabbling in a lot of things, man. And just trying to get some stuff out there, of all types. Like I said, writing, video, just pretty much a little bit of everything, man. But definitely appreciate you having me on, and hopefully we can get this thing rolling up there and put out some daily content as well.
Absolutely, man. So Don has Hustle and Crow. He also writes and does amazing job with everything that he endeavors in. And I said the word wrong, but it's okay. But his information will be in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. But Don, the one thing that I want to hit you up the first time is your schedule prediction. And a lot of people want to know the schedule prediction. And I felt that watching the Gamecocks, it was a tale of, I believe, two teams. I believe that the team did not play to its potential. Could you talk a little bit about how you thought the team ended the season? It was a shortened season, SEC only schedule. Talk a little bit about what you felt the team left you as you watched them last year.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right there, man. It's like you put out, these players in the NFL, right? And you're just like left there scratching your head, like, man, how Muschamp putting out the same amount of NFL talent Spurrier did for it's very close numbers. I think I saw the graphic the other day, very close. And yet you got these games and like these stretches where it's just anemic offense and the defense is getting gashed, but you somehow have first round draft picks on the line and in the secondary, but the secondary is terrible and you get no pressure. It doesn't make any sense, right? So I mean, there were games, you alluded to it earlier, but there are games like the Florida game, right, where you're just like, man, you were not great, but somehow still in this game all the way to the end, and then you managed to somehow completely just botch it 100%, right, to get where you're within one possession, basically, right? One score, there was an 8-point game or something like that. You were within one possession of making that a real ball game, like tying it up, kind of, being very close to a team that was basically within one score of winning the SEC championship, right?
Yeah.
You beat Auburn, right? You get this momentum, and then just completely flipping the switch at the end, right? You get blown out by LSU, blown out by A&M, you get blown out by Kentucky, blown out by Georgia, and you're sitting there just going like, man, the amount of talent that you see that you have there to put that kind of product on the field, it felt very much like you had a 6-6 team, at least, like as far as record wise. You had a team that had enough talent to be a bowl eligible team, but that was just somehow managing to botch the games that were doing good in the end, and then come out flat right in the beginning of other ones, and it's very, very frustrating as all Gamecock fans know, man, to watch that unfold that way and to not have the gimme games you would have normally had, right?
Yeah.
So pretty much you had Vanderbilt, like that was your game, Vanderbilt, and you snuck away an Auburn game, and you weren't able to get the Missouri game. But then the whole thing with Colin Hill, and that was just kind of weird to me, because I thought Helinski had at least earned the benefit of the doubt. You beat Georgia last year, like you had all this momentum. I don't know when that story is going to come out, like just knowing about what happened with that, with Bobo and Helinski. But I'm sitting here going like, man, you gotta at least assume that we can win one more game with Helinski in the game.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Something, right? Like the point difference. So Doty is kind of like, once he was thrown in there, man, you're just like, all right, well, this whole thing is a wash. Let him get some experience and we'll try again next year. But yeah, you said it though, man, like the amount of talent though to have, it didn't feel like you were a 2-8 team. It felt like you were a 6-6 team that ended up with a 2-8 record, and I tell you what, if anything good came out of it, is that we were able to hit that reset button, on the season and start with a new coach and get a leg up on this search process, and ultimately get a guy that I think everyone's really excited about.
Yeah. And then it was some good things that happened in the season. Like I said before, I agree with you. The Colin Hill thing was weird because he came off an ACL injury and he's from South Carolina, but a lot of Gamecock fans, including myself, didn't know who he was. It was like, this guy, he beat out Ryan Helinski. I was like, how did he beat out Ryan Helinski when Ryan Helinski showed flashes? Again, I think that Will Muschamp, a lot of times when he throws his quarterbacks out there, he throws them to the wolves. Ryan Helinski played well the first time they threw him out, but I remember the Alabama game. It was kind of shell shocked. That's a hard game to put a freshman in. First SEC start. It was at home, I believe, and that Alabama team was crazy. Then I think that's the team that won a national championship. If my memory serves correctly, I don't have my notes in front of me, but like I said before, it showed you that Colin Hill was not an SEC caliber quarterback. And I said that a lot of people was like, well, he wasn't a SEC caliber quarterback. And then when you go from Colin Hill to Luke Doty, which I'm excited about Luke, but the one thing I want to ask you is that my question with Luke, and I said this before, is I feel like he needs to progress in the passing game, because when they threw him in there, he showed you his athleticism, but he didn't really impress me when it came to his passing. Talk a little bit about it, Don, as far as what you think about Luke.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, I think personally that a big part of this is going to be the receiver development, because that's the one thing that I could not say about Muschamp, right, is he was looking out for his guys, all these connections he had made over the years. Joe Cox was, I believe, a quarterback at Georgia, and he was coaching our wide receivers. For what? Just to give his buddy a job? I don't know. But clearly we got nothing out of that position, right? So you have these guys that are talented, but like Joyner, in my opinion, man, like should have came out from the beginning, right? And been in the slot, making all these plays. Every time he touches it, he's going for a touchdown or something, right? But he can't seem to get his hands on the ball at all. So like things like that are going to really be like key. You got these transfers. You got Jenkins, right? He's huge. I went to spring game and saw him. The dude looks like Julio Jones or something. He is just massive, right? You get him, you get Nick Muse back, you get these slot guys like Joyner, Amarion Brown, right? You get these other guys, and then you have these other ones like Jalen Brooks, where you're not really sure what you're going to get. But, you hope you can get something. And if he can get something where he can at least develop like a short game, kind of like early Connor Shaw would, right? Where he could get like the dink and dunk stuff, He could get some screens. He had good backs, which we have great backs. You can get that, and you can at least get an identity where you know, like, hey, look, I know Luke's going to move the ball, right? He may not be able to get the deep plays, but we're going to get the balls in the hands of the guys that can turn those small plays into deep plays. Because I fully believe between Amarion Brown, Dak Joyner, Kevin Harris, Marshawn Lloyd, like EJ Jenkins, that we can get long plays without having to have a deep passing game like an Oklahoma style or a LSU under Joe Brady style. Like, I think you can still get that identity with Doty. But, the other thing I worry about with him, man, is he going to be able to be healthy through a whole SEC season? And no one's talked about that really, man. Like, but that's the big thing for me is I'm like, man, this style, like Connor Shaw at first, it was him and Garcia. People forget that, like, it was him and Garcia. And people were kind of weary of Connor Shaw because he was always scrambling out, diving for first downs and that kind of stuff. And he didn't really have the poise, and he developed it. But Connor Shaw was a coach's son. Luke Doty, he's got the energy and he's got the leadership from what I see. He's got arm strength and he's athletic. But do I trust him to throw it to a receiving core that is not developed? Like, I don't know. They're going to have to really design, like Satterfield, they're going to have to really design something catered to what he can do well. And I think that's going to be involving the tight ends a lot and using a lot of like check downs and screens and things like that. And I think that's like, I mean, everyone says quarterback play is important, but I think that is like the most important thing when you talk about the predictions of the season as far as how well this goes. What you're saying is Luke Doty is going to do good or bad. That's really kind of what you're saying. Because if he came out Heisman, you're talking about like a 10-win season. And if he comes out flat, you're talking about a 2 or 3 win season, like a really terrible season. So, I mean, really what you're saying with that is you're assuming that with that development, right, that you're going to get a guy that is capable of winning these close games, these one possession games. And I think we'll see the offense, just like I said, very catered to what he's comfortable with. So he's not chucking the ball downfield to guys and get picked off. And last year, I just think he got put in a lot of situations where he's not set up for success. So I like him so far. I'm not like 100% sold. If you told me tomorrow Jason Brown is the guy, I would say, well, you've seen a lot more of him than I have. If you think he's the guy, let's go. Like I'm not, but then again, like I really like the energy. I like the athleticism. I just want to see him make plays, however he can make them, So it's really going to rest on him, man, how well they can develop him during the offseason.
Yeah, and I think the same thing too. I know a lot of the popular talk in Gamecock Nation was Jason Brown, and the popularest guy on the campus is always the backup quarterback when your quarterback is unsure or people are like concerned about the play. And I agree with you 100%. I think the offense is going to surround it by the strengths. I think the run game is going to be so strong where the defense is going to play kind of soft or kind of be catered more to the run, put more people in the box, play, sure. The DBs play lower. And then the play action pass. That's what Connor Shaw did, first year or so. It was just play action pass, they'll run the game, they'll be afraid of the one, he'll tuck it back and throw it. And then the one thing about Will Muschamp that always got on my nerves was the fact that he would have the option run when teams already knew that the quarterback that he had in there wasn't going to run
right into a brick wall, right?
Yeah,
like that was the thing I'm watching. And then I was just watching the other day, man, the Georgia South Carolina game from I think it was like 2012, where like they were 5 and we were 6, and that was all that game was, man, was literally Lattimore in the backfield, right, like shotgun with him not alongside, and they would literally just give him the ball, right, and he'd get a couple yards. And then they do that a couple times and then play action deep over the, what I'm saying? And they would hit those guys, Demir Bird, they would hit Ellington, they would hit these like every time pretty much. And it worked. And now you have a back that people aren't going to be like surprised by. They're going to have to respect him. If you have him in shotgun and you have split backs and you literally have Lloyd on one side and Kevin Harris on the other side, and then you have Nick Muse and EJ Jenkins at tight end, right? Like if you have those 4 on the field and then you have a guy like Joyner in there too, to me, you have so many options of guys that if you get the ball in their hand, they're going to go forward. Like to me, it's not hard to mess up, but it's hard to understand, or it's hard to imagine an offense where you can't at least like get a rhythm and move it consistently. You know what I'm saying? Because you have so many guys that just get it in their hands. That's all you have to do, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So that's why I want to bring you in with the schedule, because like I want the people to know, the Gamecock Nation to know that the cupboard wasn't left bare. You know, we're not at Tennessee or we're not at Vanderbilt where the talent level is not on par with the SEC. I think that, this is my opinion, and I know you agree with this as well. It was coaching. I truly believe that it was coaching to where it doesn't make sense if Will Muschamp go from, I think he was like eight games, 6-7 games one year. Then he won like 8 games the next year. He was on a upward trajectory. It doesn't work in college football where you're on the upward trajectory, then you go down. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Usually you continue to go up and you plateau. But it was like, how do you plateau the second year when those guys were Steve Spurrier guys? You know,
Right.
so let's talk about the schedule, because ESPN FBI projects that we're gonna go 4-8. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to give you the name of the team, the percentage that they think that we're gonna win, and I'm gonna get your opinion about what do you think
Sure.
that whether we win or lose, and I kind of chime in as well. So the first game of the season, we all know what time it is. We play Eastern, like the FBI says, we're 65th nationally. Our projected win-loss record is 4-8. We have no chance of winning out, and we have no chance of winning the conference. Which, I mean, we already know that if we win, I believe if we win 8 games, Coach Beamer is going to be the SEC Coach of the Year. You know what I'm saying? I feel as though it's that. Eastern Illinois, we have a 98.8% chance. Don, what do you think about that game?
So I mean, listen, like opening game of the year, like I fully expect that to be something where he can see the schedule the following weeks, right? And he's able to fill out the first half. Right? We expect that to be a blowout game, right? But I could see him being very limited, as far as playbook and just kind of, hey, what can I get done like through this game, get a win without showing anything? And that's kind of going to be the key, right? Is like, what can I do to use literally like 2% of my playbook? I just want to hand it off to Harris, do what guys can make some plays, right? And get some film to break down as far as like what guys are going to step up and be playmakers on both ends, right? And know how good is my defensive line. But I think ultimately, like I can totally see that being a 3 and 4 back game. I can see Zaquandre White playing. I can see even maybe Nathan Harris Waynick playing. Like I can see a bunch of running backs getting touches and just saying, hey, look, man, we got some important games coming up. We are not going to let Doty make a whole bunch of plays, and we're not going to unveil a whole lot of our playbook. Like I can imagine that Beamer's been probably like bookmarking some plays over the last, several years to assemble this playbook, right? And he seems to have some good chemistry with his staff that he's like, look, he completely understands what situation he's in. That being said, with that first game, like I can see that being a quiet blowout, like a 42-10 kind of thing, not crazy, right? But just like, just get it done, like a business strictly kind of win, nothing flashy, just more of like get some touches, dink and dunk. Let's just let the guys make plays, and you'll win on talent alone, which you can do in a couple games. And I think that obviously would be the biggest one in the season, where you can win on talent alone and really just be a good warm up, which I think is really going to be important for him to come out of the gate with the warm up to kind of get a feel for everything and get the nerves chilled out. So I think it's going to be important that we have them that week, and should be an easy win.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think this team is the team that lost to the Citadel or struggled with the FCS schools over the past
Right.
few years. The main thing, like I said, I think this may be a Jason Brown sighting. The reason why is because, like you said, I agree 100%. You don't want to open your playbook 100% because these teams are scouting. You want it as vanilla as possible. You want to get done with limited injuries. The first half, we should be able to be killing them, and then you send your reserves and other players out the way, so that way they can kind of get some playing time. Because this game right here in particular is probably one of those games where if you're the third or fourth guy on the team on the bench, for a third string, you should be getting in. If it's the third quarter and we, up by 2 touchdowns, something is wrong. So I think the Gamecocks should handle Eastern Illinois crazy. That should be the win. So that's 1-0. We both agree on that. The second game of the season is Vandy. Okay. Vandy, we have an 81.7 percent chance to win against Vandy. Don, talk a little bit about this Vandy team and what do you think who gonna win?
So, I mean, they got the new coach, Clark Lee from Notre Dame, right? The defensive coordinator. He was a Vandy alum, right? They've got some returning guys, but to be honest, man, the main problem they had with Derek Mason was he was great on getting them defensively prepared, but they didn't recruit a lot of offensive playmakers. And when they did, right, they had the guys last year, the running back, the tight end, the one that went to Tampa Bay, right? They had the Kalijah Lipscomb, I think was a wide receiver. And then the tight end, like I said, he got a lot of catches. But as far as like a offense that can move the ball, they just didn't have any, which is why South Carolina has just run rampant over them. I mean, was it 41-7 last year on a team that won 2 games? To hire a defensive coach, to me, I mean, the last time that as a Gamecock fan, I was worried about playing Vanderbilt was when they had James Franklin, right? Yeah. James Franklin could move the ball, right? These were like, we're talking about like Jay Cutler, Jordan Rogers, right? Jordan Matthews, right? We're talking about guys like that people know that were on the offense. And the defensive line for us, I believe, is going to be not only a strong point for us, but I think they're going to be a top 5 defensive line in the conference. I mean, I don't see any reason why, especially if these other guys develop, Pickens and Birch and all those guys develop. I don't see any reason why, right? Like you shouldn't be setting your secondary up in a game like this to get a pick or two, right? And ultimately, like even if Vandy looks good defensively, they're not recruiting extremely well, right? As far as like guys they have now available. So I see this being a game where, again, it shouldn't be a blowout, but I can definitely see it being similar to last year, maybe a little closer. Like I can see a 28-10 or something like that. I don't see this being a game at all either where they're concerned. You know, I see this being a game where maybe it's not a high number of points, but where we're not concerned about Vandy scoring points. And that's really going to be the deciding factor in the game. It might be close for a half, but I think at the end, like we are more talented than Vandy. They don't have an offense that, you know, that I've seen that can put up any points. So I would want to see more from Clark Lee, and I want to see them play some offense before I'm concerned about that being a game we lose. You know, and maybe next year that's a different story, but for this year, I just had that penciled in as a W, and I didn't think twice about it.
Yeah. I agree. It's the same thing. I think with the momentum of East Illinois, I think this is a good game where we're gelling to getting things together. It's an SEC opponent. It's an SEC East opponent. And I think that if you're a South Carolina, you're Shane Beamer, you need to make a statement by beating Vandy, you know, because as you know, there's no gimmies in the SEC. Vandy is close. Vandy is close, but you know, you don't want to sit there and give them any hope. You know, like I said before, I think that Vandy doesn't recruit well down there in Nashville. It's hard to get, you know, quality players down there. It's an academic school. So like I said before, I agree. This should be our second win of the season. I think the momentum should be building. After that, third win is Eastern Carolina, the Pirates. They gave us a 68.4% chance of winning the game. They said this is our only road game in 2021. Gamecocks are favorite in. We haven't met since 2016, a 2015 win with Will Muschamps' first season in Columbia. And then we own a 14-5 all-time record against the Pirates. So how do you think we're going to do in Greenville, North Carolina?
So definitely an important game, right? Because, you know, if you're mapping out, like if your average Gamecock fan is just saying, hey, look, you know, give me the 6 wins this year, right? I want 6 wins. And I can live with, you know, 6-6, but I need 6. This is one with the first one on the schedule where you're like, I don't feel 100%, like I'm a little nervous. I don't know much about ECU. You know, we've normally dominated them, but we've had some games in the past with them that weren't exactly the most comfortable. I remember we played them in Charlotte to open the year, like years back, where that was the game we opened where Connor Shaw started the game and then Garcia went in second half and had to come back. Now, this isn't like the Ruffin McNeil ECU, right? Or like a Skip Holtz-ish ECU or anything like that, right? But this is a team that, because we don't know much about them, right, we're going to just be nervous about it. That being said, if you do any research on ECU, they were terrible last year, like just terrible. Now, they've had some games where they could put up some points, but they lost to a lot of not good teams. I'll just put it that way. So I don't expect this to be, a very similar to the Vanderbilt game. I don't expect it to be like a pretty game, but I definitely expect to win the game. That being said, if you don't win that game, I don't see 6 wins. Like that's the first one where you're like, yo, if you don't win this game, 6 is going to be very hard to get to, right? You're going to start like kind of really, I think that's where the panic button, like if people have it about Shane Beamer and how excited they are now, that's going to be the first time we're like, if he can't get this done, it's going to be hard. But we're going to really find out then. I think he's going to have to like maybe, make sure that he has a sufficient game plan, because even though the talent is good, the team like that is going to pull out all the stops to beat it. I mean, there's going to be regional ties, and it's just never like really a pretty game with them. So it's going to definitely be an important game, but I still think ultimately a winnable game, and it should be one like I have down as a win.
Yeah, 3-0 to start the season off after only winning 2 games. I agree. If this was Coastal Carolina, I'd be very worried.
For sure.
So that's the only Carolina school other than Clemson. I'm like, man, like, but ECU, I believe this should be a win. I don't think that it depends on how we play, and that's one thing that is hard because we haven't seen this team together. So the first 2 games we can kind of adjust our thermometers as you see. But I agree 100%. I think this is a game that we need to win. Like Shane Beamer knows that, okay, we're going to try to get to 6 wins. Right. We don't want to make a bowl game at 5 because they may get us. No, we want 6 wins to say, hey, look, we haven't won 6 games. And I know last year was 2 and the year before it was 4. In 2 years, we haven't won 6 games. So
right.
I agree 100%. We need this win. I think we should have it. And I think that this would be a good game as well. The next game that they said that we should win is Troy, who had the 61.1%. This is our 3rd or 4th non-conference games this season, and we're hosting the Trojans in early October with a little more than 60% chance of victory. The Gamecocks will go for their 4th win in the series, which dates back to 2004. We have a 3-0 record against the smaller program for Alabama. What we gonna think we're gonna do with the Trojans down in Columbia?
So this one, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was later in the season, right?
Yes, this is the 4th game of the season.
So with that one, man, I think it's very similar to the East Carolina game, right? Whereas you're able to beat a team on talent alone, right? I don't know that it's one that any Gamecock fan is comfortable about either, as far as we know what we're going up against. We know what to expect, right? It's kind of one of those things where you don't watch a lot of Troy football, right? But these smaller teams like the Liberties, right, and the Coastal Carolinas have been good lately, right? There have been teams that have really come up lately, and that's going to be a game where if you don't have your foot on the gas, man, like it can catch up, it can sneak up on you. But that's another one where I feel like the talent level, albeit not like amazing, but should definitely be something where you're able to overcome it. Not an App State like a couple of years back, not like that, where they're just really greatly coached and they're super disciplined and you just went in there expecting to win. Like, I don't think it's one of those situations. I can see that being a game where if you do get behind early or you're able to recover, right, because you're just a more physical team up front, and ultimately you're outsizing, outmanning, and you have more talent. So I see that being definitely a game that you can pencil in as a win too. But just one that I would be curious to see how it starts, because those games like those are kind of, I don't like to say the trap game, but those are games you don't know much, right? Because no one's sitting here and they're like, oh, I watch Troy football. Like, nobody does. You can look at scores online. You can say, oh yeah, I know about them, but you don't, right? So yeah. Ultimately, until you play the game, you don't know. But you'd like to think that you can outman a team like Troy and make some mistakes, have an imperfect game, and still definitely win the game.
Yeah. With Troy football, like I said before, I agree with you 110%. We should be the most dominant team out there. And push come to shove, we can just let the big uglies block and let one of the 3 backs run gaping holes, Luke Doty included. So right. By this time, I think that we should have our swagger and our gel, and we should be coming together because we're going to need it towards the end of the season. I right. love what what Shane Beamer and Ray Tanner did with the schedule. You know, we got a couple of cupcake games. We got a couple of games to make us feel good, but we didn't stretch ourselves out by scheduling crazy, teams to build our confidence, because the next game is against Kentucky. They said that we have a 42.5 chance of winning. This is the game where Kevin Harris went off. He had 210 yards, 21 carries this season finale against Kentucky. Did he had it? No, that was a 5-game touchdown game. I think that was against Vanderbilt. But
Ole Miss, I think.
Ole Miss, yeah. I know he had another one, but the other 200 yards he had, Ole Miss. So we haven't beat Kentucky 6 of 7 games. Kentucky has had our number. So do you think that this year would be the year that we can finally get on the winning ways against the Wildcats of Kentucky?
So it's definitely, I have it in one of my top 5 most important games of the season, right? It's definitely an important game. I think the hard part about this for like most Gamecock fans, myself included, is that you just assume that even though Kentucky's won some games, that you're better than Kentucky, right? And the problem with that, and I understand the whole fan that's like, they're a basketball school, like they're not as serious about it as we are. Our facilities are better. We have more fans in our stadium, blah, blah, blah. I'm with you on that, right? But if you want to tell me that team has not figured, they have a rhythm with Mark Stoops. They have consistency, right? They have put guys in the NFL early in the first round, right? They've put guys in like the first round of the draft. They are consistently a good defensive team. Now they've had some quarterback issues here and there, right? As far as getting, like, they had Terry Wilson and then he was hurt, but they've got Rodriguez at running back is a really good player. I mean, he's I think probably 5th or 6th best back in the conference, in my opinion. That's a debatable thing, but he's a really good back. You have a good running game, and you have a consistent staff, right? That's been able to build on their previous success. Now, they didn't have the greatest year last year, but they got turnovers on defense, right? They had several pick sixes and, defensive touchdowns, and the guys play defense. So as hard as this is for me to say out loud, right, the reality is, if you win that game, great, but you're not favored yet because you haven't shown enough. And the reality is, the last few years, they've had our number because they do those things better than we do those things. We don't have an identity yet. So it's going to take, that's going to be the first big test. You're going to have to do something, right, and have something ready for that game in order to win it. I don't see that being the case. I can see that being a very frustrating first half, where the game plan you have is not what ends up being the case, right? Because their defense is holding us offensively, and they're able to run, right? And they are more experienced and more polished, and they know what they want to do, and they can do it decently well. So I can see that being a very close game. I definitely have it as in the toss-up category, but I would say that I lean more like 60-40 on Kentucky being able to win the game. I definitely see it as winnable. But like, if I'm I'm an odds maker, just not knowing anything, right, about it, like just what we have available, like I would have to say, Beamer not having called a play yet, right? This all could change if he comes out there and he's putting them 70 points a game the first few weeks. You know what I mean? But we don't know. We're just assuming what we know now. And so based on what we know now, I have to say that they have an advantage.
I agree. The homer in me wants to say we are going to beat Kentucky.
Right.
But logically, it's like they are at this current time with what we know, like you said, Don, they are the better team than us. So I hate to say that too, because it's like, I'm not a naive fan to be like, well, we should go 14-0. Like, no, you know what I'm saying? Is this going to be at home? No, I think this is going to be at Kentucky this year.
I think we have them at home, actually.
You know what? At home, it's a toss-up game.
It is a toss-up. I
think
agree.
that for me, I think we could. It just all depends on how we play. Because if we're rolling at home at 80,000 plus at Williams-Brice Stadium, that home field advantage is crazy. I used to sell programs when I was in high school there. I was there the night that we lost to Clemson 63 to 13 or whatever. It was a crazy blowout. But the fans still was there. to the fourth quarter. We're still there. We're still hollering. So I'm gonna toss up.
Yeah, it's a hard one, man, because like you want to give the benefit of the doubt, right? Like to your own team, but then you just realize that, like in general, you have a guy that's been there. How many years Mark Stoops been there? Like 9?
Yeah, he's been there
like
for a
something
while.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a while. So you just like, it's hard to say, like, without seeing Beamer do anything, that he's going to have an advantage in a game that's 50-50 or that's, 45-55 or whatever. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I can see it being a game where we lose by one possession or by a field goal or something like that, and it being very, very intense and like physical and close. I just don't know that I can confidently say we'll win the game. And that's the hard part. You know what I mean? And that's, so I don't want to be overconfident. I feel like some of my predictions here are a little overconfident to some people. I want to be, that's my first like realistic moment of the schedule where I'm like, all right, dial it back. You ain't gonna beat everybody. This is gonna be the first one where you might have a little humble pie and you might like lose one that it's not gonna be a Cinderella season. You might go lose some games. Yeah, that's the first one.
Absolutely. But here's the thing. Even if we lose that game, we're still 4-1. Going into the next game against Tennessee. They said we have a 31. Here's ESPN, and here's the mockery of ESPN and the fact that they're biased because they gave us a 31.2% of beating Tennessee, which Tennessee is a trash program right now. They're not good. They're riddled with controversies. They're riddled with like NCAA violations. So Don, tell me what you think about this game right here. Do you think that we only have a 31% chance of winning this game?
Absolutely not. So first off, we should have beat them last year. If I just want to throw that out there, we should have beat them last year. If Polinsky starts that game, we probably win the game. They lost the guy that got the pick in that game, Henry To'oTo'o. They lost him to Alabama. That was their top defender. Not to mention 9 or 10 other guys that completely left the program, right? That you think with a brand like Tennessee that they could pull a top coach. They get Josh Heupel just because their new AD, right? Remember, people forget they have a new AD because that same guy hired Heupel at Central Florida. So to me, very lazy hire. Now, I don't know. It could end up being a smart one. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I know that Josh Heupel had some success at Central Florida, but that ain't the SEC, right? So to me, to hire the same guy you already hired, like somewhere else, is just very lazy move for somewhere like Tennessee, where you have the financial resources to hire almost anyone you want, right? So I don't understand that. It's been completely dysfunction like all offseason. Like I said, your best defender's gone. You have multiple guys on the offensive side. You don't know who's going to play quarterback, right? You're going to tell me that a program like that is going to be a 70% favorite to beat it? I don't see that at all. I just don't. Now, granted, they're always going to have some talent on the field because they're Tennessee, right? But they've lost multiple recruiting battles to us even this offseason. They were going to get that Prunty, right, from Kansas, and we ended up getting him over him. There's been multiple guys that have eliminated them to go places that are not as prominent, not as popular. So I don't know that people in that program right now are excited. I can understand why they wouldn't be, right? Like they replace a legend as far as their AD to them, Philip Fulmer. They get this guy who just picks the guy he already had. And Heupel is not a guy that's excited. Since he's been the coach there, they've had several guys transfer, which tells me, because a lot of times you get the transfer, right, like in the middle of the process. And then once you hire the guy, you can reel him back in. But this has been like guys just leaving after meeting him, after being at practices with him, after doing workouts with him, just going, I don't like this. Now, that could be a good sign, like he's too tough and all that. I don't know that I buy that. So I see this as a game that we should win. I think this is the other coin of the Kentucky, right? This is literally Kentucky flipped, right? I think even if we are 5% more talented than them, I don't see a coaching disadvantage here, right? And I think it's in Knoxville. And I honestly, man, if I can be real, I don't care where we play them this year. I think it should be a win.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's going to be a blowout win, right? But I think it should be very similar fashion that they beat us last year. Wait, maybe it's close, and then in the end we pull away. But I wouldn't be shocked if we did win by 10 points or 2 score. I think it's a very winnable game. But for me, it's the most important game of the season, because if we go back to what I was saying a minute ago about your path to 6 wins, right? I don't think you get there without winning that one. Even if you beat East Carolina, right, you got a tough second half. So if you can't beat Tennessee, it's very unlikely that you can get to 6. So that means that you're not beating hardly anyone else the rest of the way out. So that's going to be really important to see what happens there. But there's nothing as a Gamecock fan that's realistic. There's nothing that scares me about playing Tennessee in Knoxville. I don't care what time of day. I'm not scared about it right now. And I don't think Coach Beamer will be either. And I can see us winning that game. And that's why I have a pencil down as a W.
Yeah, just like you said, I believe that we can either go 5-1 or we can be 6-0. 6-0, I believe, will guarantee us in the top 25 in the rankings at this particular point of time. If the AP poll had North Carolina at number 5 a few weeks into the season, I'm like, look here with the schedule. I mean, it's not a strong schedule, but I think that because of where our projections are, a win like this could. I'm not saying we will be a top 25 team. I'm just saying like we may be one of those teams that's just outside. That's like, okay, we may get some love, but I believe with this record right here, we should win the game. Like I don't see a struggle against Tennessee, and I just don't. I don't even know why they got this situated. With that, so we talked about, so the next game they got us with is Missouri, the Tigers. They said we got a 29.8% chance of winning this game. So do you think that we win against the Tigers?
So, and I might have my prediction. I don't know if I have this thing all the schedule, like the order all out of whack or not, but I'm looking at the Missouri game, man, and it's another one that is very close to the Kentucky game. As far as, I mean, they had last year, they had the momentum in winning a lot of games towards the end of the season. They got a lot of momentum, right? But if you look at the schedule this year for them, if you pull it up game by game for Missouri, it's not like that this year. They can get the early momentum, but their second half of that schedule is really just bad. It's really hard. So I think I had them at 6-6, right? And I mean, I like the coach there. I like Connor Basilick, okay, but they're replacing Roundtree, they're replacing Nick Bolton, right? I don't know how many returning starters they have, but I know it's not. The best guys are gone, is what I'm getting at here, and I don't know that I can see them being a team that we are nervous of playing. I don't know that they're going to be an offense that's going to be able to light it up. I mean, last year, even with, I think Doty, was that the game where Doty played half of it?
Yeah.
Right.
The Missouri
and it was
game.
17-10. And that was when Missouri was hot. And that was when we were coming off of getting just like railroaded by everyone. Right. Even that game was one where it was like, hey, you got half of Luke Doty and you had the last possession, you had a chance to tie the game. Right. Like you had half of it. And so that's with all those circumstances in play, with Bobo calling the plays, right? Like, to me, was still a very winnable game. And out of the last, 4 games of the season, that was the only one that was close, right? Because you had Kentucky blow us out, Georgia blow us out, Clemson blow us out, or not Clemson, but Kentucky, Georgia, and that one was the close one. And 17-10, that was with those guys. So there's nothing about Missouri either. Like I think that they've got the right guy, steering the ship. I know they got I think Steve Wilkes, like the new DC, very highly respected. Like I think he's the highest paid DC in the conference right now. Like he's definitely, I think, got $2 million or something to be their DC. So very impressive staff and all that they've got going on. And it's awesome for them. Like I think they're headed in the right direction. But I think everything considered, like if things are going as I'm predicting they are at this point, like if we're literally on this kind of high as far as the schedule, like I don't see this being a team that's going to run us out of the building. I really see this being a game where if it comes out in one possession, it's the one possession where we can get a score and we can win the game. Or if we need a stop, we can get a stop. I really see this being a game that we win.
So let me do this because I looked at the FBI. It's not an order. So the first game is Eastern Illinois. We said that was a win. ECU, that's a win. We haven't talked about Georgia yet. Kentucky is after Georgia. That's a toss-up game with Troy and then Tennessee and then Vandy. So the schedule looks like, we'll talk about the Georgia game in a few minutes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 and 2.
That's how I had it shaked out. Yeah, at 5-2.
Yeah, 5-2 right now. Because we talk about the Georgia game, and we already talked about the Kentucky game. Just so that fans, people be like, Lucky, you ain't in order. I realized that it looked like it was in order until it goes by the number, so it keeps going down with that.
Yeah,
so,
no, it's like that on ESPN, man. They don't pay attention to that. They just throwing stuff up there.
All right. So one game that I want to talk about is SEC West, USC West, South Carolina West. Well, US of C West. And I talk about the Auburn Tigers with Mike Bobo and half our staff, which went down to the Tigers. We beat them last year. ESPN said we got a 25.2% chance of beating Auburn. What do you think about this game? Because I got my 2 cents in this game as well. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know a Gamecock fan right now that doesn't want to smack Auburn around, right, this year. Especially, like, you're poaching, Tracy Rocker, right? You're poaching Mike Bobo. Honestly, we're better off without those guys anyways, in my opinion. But just the way that went down, very sketch, right? They got Tank Bigsby, which we were supposed to have, right? That would have been, I'd rather Marshawn Lloyd right now and Kevin Harris than Tank Bigsby, but great player that we initially had committed. I even go back to the days where they got Kenny Irons from us, and then all of a sudden turned Kenny Irons into this like formidable, like really powerhouse running back, right? So like me liking, and then the SEC championship, right, where Cam Newton just throws a Hail Mary at halftime to just put it away before the half's even over. So I can't stand Auburn as it is. But if you look at their schedule, it is murder's row. I think I have them winning 4 games tops, right? And if you look at it, the schedule does matter, right? Some people say like, oh, like the better team, whatever. I can literally see Auburn losing the last 7 games in their schedule. And if you have it available, definitely take a look. You have Alabama at the end, right? You have us before Alabama, right? You have, I think it's Mississippi State. You have Texas A&M. You have, I want to say Georgia too, like all like back, right? Then in your beginning of your schedule, you have 2 winnable games in the front, but then you have Penn State right after that. So you're out of conference, you got Penn State. They're going to lose to Penn State, right? They're going to lose to A&M. I don't know if they play Arkansas. I don't know that that's a win because Arkansas is tough, right? So nothing about Bo Nix. You got to remember, they lost with Bo Nix to a Colin Hill-led South Carolina team, right? The only other team they could say that is Vanderbilt, right?
Yeah.
So, and they went after J.C. Horn in that game, and it was terrible. They just kept going at him, and that is with Gus Malzahn calling the plays. I'm way more scared of Gus Malzahn than I am of Brian Harsin. I am not nervous about playing Brian Harsin. I'm not nervous about playing Bo Nix, right? Like, I'm just not nervous about playing them, and their schedule is just terrible. So, like, I could see them being 4-8. I could even see 3-9. Like, I don't know how an Auburn fan looks at their schedule this year and is confident about beating South Carolina. It's really bad. If you have it pulled up, it's terrible.
Don, we're just gonna say the schedule real quick. They got Akron, which is a win. Alabama State, which is HBCU, that should be a win. You got Penn State. Nope. Georgia State should be a win. That's their homecoming, by the way. Auburn fans, Auburn fans.
That's it from there.
And then after LSU, nope. Georgia, it's not happening. Nope. Arkansas, like I said, the tough team. You got Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Mississippi State. You got South Carolina, Alabama. With that schedule, with that being said like that, I think that can definitely be a win as well. It just doesn't, the program don't seem like the same Auburn program in years past. Even with Gus Malzahn there as well, even back with the Cam Newton days or whatever, it's just like you will have an Auburn team every once in a while pop up and make some noise, and they would usually be around the cusp as far as being somewhat relevant, especially in the SEC West. This ain't it, Chief. This schedule.
Yeah, and here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. Think about it this way. Yeah, they're happy they got Mike Bobo, and that's great for them. But if they're going to try to run the same offense with Mike Bobo at Auburn that we did last year, right? They don't. My opinion, Bo Nix is a great name, but he's not a great quarterback. He's very inconsistent. I don't know that he's better than Jake Bentley. If I just want to throw that out there, right? Like, I don't know that he's better than, very wildly inconsistent. He's had a high moment, I think, where I don't know if he beat Oregon like 2 years ago, or if he almost beat Oregon that opening game like that. That was his like claim to fame moment. And then after that, I haven't seen much that I'm impressed about. Tank Bigsby is great, but if they're gonna line up and run that offense with our defensive line, right? I can't see a scenario where they're running us out of the building, and they don't have the dogs that they would have had a couple of years ago. They don't have, you know what I'm saying, those guys. Like they don't have like a Nick Fairley type guy, right? Or like any of the guys that they would have before. This isn't even like Nick Marshall, like quarterbacking, right? Like Nick Marshall was not like a crazy talented quarterback, but the guy knew how to run the offense really, really well. And they don't have Seth Williams anymore. Like they don't have anyone that I could say, oh yeah, I'm scared of that guy, besides Tank Bigsby. So if they run this I formation stuff that Mike Bubble was doing last year, I don't see a scenario where, I mean, even if you just said, hey, who's better, Kevin Harris or Tank Bigsby, whoever's got the better running game is gonna win the game. I'm going with South Carolina. It might be close. You know what I'm saying? Like it's close. But like Lloyd and Harris versus Bigsby and whoever they got behind him, just nothing about that game scares me. And like I said, they got Alabama the very next week, right? We got Clemson the next week, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. We got Clemson.
But like, I just don't see. And Mississippi State, in my opinion, is going to beat them. Like Ole Miss is going to beat them. Like A&M is going to beat them. So they're going to be like, not firing territory, but can you imagine an Auburn fan where they've lost 7 games in a row, like 6, and then they go into South Carolina? You know what I'm saying? Like it's not going to be a good situation for them. They're going to be really hitting the panic button going, we hired the wrong guy. Like we've lost so many games in a row, right? And then they're going to go to that game. And it doesn't set up well for them. I think it's a game that's going to help us. That schedule is going to contribute to the reasons why I think we should win that game.
And for me, I don't think that, like you said, Mike Bobo, because I forget the radio host in Columbia that was talking about, he was excited about Mike Bobo. I was like, I didn't like him at Colorado State in the office that he ran, and I felt like he was. It was just a hire that Will Muschamp just is kind of, because they had all these successful quarterbacks at Georgia. I think he wasn't he the OC when Matt Stafford. No, not Matt. Andrew. It was Aaron Murray that was down there, right? Around that time.
I mean, it was in Georgia during that time period under Mark Richt. I want to say, I think it was like Murray, and then they had the guy that started for 1 year, I think before Murray. I don't remember that Georgia timeline, but their offense wasn't. They had great running backs, right? They didn't have a scary like passing game then. They had great running backs, and they recruited great running backs, and that was really like the main draw, was that they could run over you.
And so my thing is, I don't understand, as the the Auburn coach, for him to pull Mike Bobo. It's like, yeah, we want to get the OC that the team went 2-8. It's like, it doesn't. Anyway, I agree. I think that's a win right there. I think that Auburn is in a world of hurt, and I know some of the Auburn fans, when I reported that Mike Bobo left to go to Auburn, they was like, yeah, take it, South Carolina. I was like, well, we're gonna see about that. Let's keep going. We got a few more games to talk about. Florida. This is gonna be a tough one. 22.1% chance of winning this. Georgia ain't no joke. So Don, so talk a little bit about this game, and what do you think is gonna happen?
So this is another one of those games, man, that there's no reason that I have right now, right? Like, again, with this is one thing I want to stress. Like when I'm predicting these games, I only have the information we have now, right? Which is, I don't know anything about the way Beamer calls games. I don't know anything about the kind of offense we're going to have. Nobody really does. All we know is who transferred in and how those guys did, right? But last year, like when we played last year, you kind of have to go out of the window. So like, you'd like to think that we can hang around with a team like Florida, right? Just on talent. You can hang around with them. You can be inventive enough to keep it close in the first half. Like, I know they don't have Kyle Trask anymore. I know they don't have Kyle Pitts anymore, right? They lost some guys. We don't know. I mean, Felipe Franks was terrible, right? It's like, I wasn't a big Felipe. Like, we should have beat them more times in the last 5 years than we did. We had that 1 year we had a huge lead on them and then let it go. Last year we had this baffling, time management at the end of the game, right? So there are reasons as a Gamecock fan to think like, yo, that's a winnable game. Like it's not like we're going to be favorites or anything like that, but it's a game where we should be at least in a position right, for it to be a game. That being said, they're a very talented team. Dan Mullen's got a lot of guys coming in there for them, a lot, right? They're always loaded, always. I don't know that I can see right now with the information I have, right, without knowing what kind of offense we're going to run, us winning that game. I just don't, right? It's just one of those games where you're going to say, like, look, push come to shove, they're a slightly more talented team at this point in this juncture, right? Now, 2 years from now, like that might be more of a toss-up situation, right? But I think right now, like with what you have to give them the edge.
Yeah, absolutely. That game is sandwiched between after Vanderbilt's the Texas A&M Florida game as well. So, good thing that we had Vanderbilt to get some confidence on, because that Texas A&M game at College Station is going to be tough, and that Florida game, even though it's at Columbia, it may, it, like you said, as with the information we have right now as we speak, because we never seen Shane Beamer run an offense or control the defense. He was, I think he was a special team coordinator, right, when he was with.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the one thing that I wanted to make sure that I brought up when I was factoring my predictions, is that, Beamer's dad, right, the Beamer ball, like the whole thing behind Beamer ball was the special teams play, right, was how good their special teams was. They would get block kicks, they would get returns, like they won the the starting position, right, like they would win the battle, right, of that, and they would get a lot of turnovers and a lot of big special teams plays. And Beamer has been a part of a lot of teams that have done that, right? Especially South Carolina. I mean, how many games can we say, hey, when we got the Ace Sanders return, that was when that game was like, it's a wrap, or that's when that game turned around, right? Or when we had the Melvin Ingram fake punt run for a touchdown.
Oh my God, that was crazy.
That's when, right. So like we can't, when we're doing predictions, we're not even thinking about those things, right? We're not thinking like, oh man, what about the X factor plays that they've got? And I've talked to so many people, and I've watched so many videos, read so many articles, people that go, hey, look, if I was a head coach, Pete Lembo would be the guy that I would get to run my special teams. And that's not like even being South Carolina fans, man. That's just like guys around the country, how respected he is. If you go and look, like the rankings of the special teams units that he has taken over and where they went from and where they went to, like it is a skyrocket situation. It's like top 5, 10 in the country every time he's there. And then the assistants that he's hired, I can't remember his name, man, but he brought an assistant, I was reading about the other day, for the special teams, where he's like in charge of the analytics and like breaking down things, right, and helping contribute. And every unit he was on went from like dead last to like top 2, top 3 in the country. So like that's gonna be a big factor for me, is like, what are these plays that are gonna happen that no one can predict and no one's gonna know is gonna happen? Are we gonna be able to win, like starting possession, right? Like where are we starting at? Because last year was terrible. Like Kai Kroger really needs to like figure out his punt. It wasn't great punting wise. We would start off in our own 20, our own 15 and 10 all the time, right? So that's going to be a big factor, is the special teams, right? Starting possession. Can we pin them back, right? Can we get pressure? Can we get a blocked kick, a blocked punt? Can we get a punt return? Like we weren't really getting much of that last year, and really in the last few years.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of buzz between Beamer being a special teams coach, Pete Lembo, his assistants he's hired, the guys we have as far as like playmakers, and then the idea of starting guys that are starters on your special teams. Because there's a lot of times there's, we'll put the freshmen out there, we'll put the backups out there, and they'll learn special teams. No, like Beamer was fully on board with having like your big, your best guys on special teams, and putting a emphasis on that. And I think that that's going to really play a role, with how his tenure is going to go, especially as it pertains to this first year and how you're predicting games. Because a lot of them games decide by one score, man. You get something like that, and it really can flip the whole momentum of the game.
The only time I really remember South Carolina in the last 4 or 5 years that Will Muschamp been there was really successful at the kickoff return, punt return game, with Deebo Samuel was returning them, but that's before he got hurt. Right. Like he was he had a 3 or 4 game stretch, if I remember correctly, where he was almost on the Heisman Award like type deal. He was he was amazing. Kickoff returns. He had a punt return. I think not a punt return, but he had a big punt return as far as yardage. He was putting up mad numbers. But last year, I think our special team, to be funny, our special team cost us a lot of times when it came to South Carolina. Like we'll have like an offsides penalty. We'll hit the kicker.
The Tennessee game last year, if you remember, right? We were about to get the ball back in the fourth quarter with like 2 or 3 minutes left, something like that, right? Or maybe it was less than that, like a minute left. And the guy blocks his guy right into the ball, if you remember that, and it bounces off. Yeah, that's a special teams blunder, right? And I remember Muschamp having to have Brian Edwards back there. And no offense to Brian Edwards, because he's great. He got great hands. But I remember the quote was, Will Muschamp said, I just need someone that's going to be able to catch the ball, and he's the only one I trust. Brian Edwards he had some pretty good returns here and there, but he was not like a burner, right? No. He was not meant for that position. He was not meant to be a punt returner. That's why the Raiders are never going to use him like that, right? So the fact that that's how they were running their special teams, right? It was bad, man. It was a weakness of the team, and it took a team that was already at a disadvantage and just made it worse. So I see this being a strength right away, right? And that's when you get these 50-50s and you get the edge because you get these, field positions starting closer and you get these good returns and all that. I see that being a big factor.
And the funny thing was they just kind of threw the Kerryon Jordan in there a few times as well. It was like,
just assuming it would work or whatever.
Yeah.
Just to put someone, and it just. So I don't understand the logic, man. It wasn't. It was just like, we'll give people what they want. They want to see him have his hands on the ball, so we'll just throw him back there. And I'm like, he's not even able to return the kicks hardly. It's touchbacks most of the time, right? So you can't even do much with them. And they weren't able to hardly block anything. And then the one play they had 2 years ago in Alabama, when they had Alabama kind of on the ropes, and then they messed up the fake field goal, if you remember that, right? Where they had the holding call. So like the discipline on special teams has been really bad. So I'm excited to see that be a strength, and I fully expect it to be a strength compared to the last 5-6 years.
Yeah. So I agree 100%. I forgot about that. That Tennessee game was so mad. I was like, what are you doing? It is like, let's not.
You can't even field a punt to put your offense on the field to try to win the game. You can't even get the punt. Like,
because nobody's screaming
fumble. That was just you can't get out of the way of the ball.
Yeah, somebody should have been calling something. So this man, or he's sitting there still. Let's keep going.
Exactly.
So this Georgia game right here, they said we got a 6.9% chance of winning this game. This is going to be tough as well. We are playing Georgia. I like us playing Georgia early. We play them third game of the season. So Don, just talk to me real quick about this game because it's gonna be. Let me hear what you got to say first. I'm curious.
So first off, just want to remind everybody that I hate Georgia. Right? Just want to throw that out there. To hell with Georgia, right? Just get that out there.
Yeah, we hate Georgia.
Right. I think the one thing we have going for us is that Will Muschamp is helping their defense. So maybe we can score more points on them because he's helping them out, right? But I don't see JT Daniels being some Heisman favorite quarterback like everyone wants to say he is. He wasn't that good to Southern Cal. I don't see him being that great, but I don't think he has to be because I think that their line, right, is usually so solid, like on both sides of the ball. Their line is so solid that they don't really need to be that much. Like they lost Pickens, I think, like a receiver. They lost another receiver, like with ACL in the offseason, and they're still not really worried. And then they got Gunnar Stockton from us in the offseason, which whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then they got the other kid, Vandergrift, 5-star quarterback, like ready in the wings. So like, even if Daniels isn't paying out, they've got guys, right? They got Zamir White at running back. They always put through running backs. So I don't know. The only thing I can tell, and I have that as I think the third game of the season.
Yes, third game of the season, right? Yep.
So the only thing that I can hope for as a Gamecock fan perspective is that Beamer's already got that game circled as that's the game where I'm going to unveil the plays I got. That's the game where I'm going to say, hey, look, I've been waiting for a long time to be a head coach. Here's where they're going to find out how I can coach a game. And if he's ready and he doesn't have to do much in those first two games, right, then maybe you've got a shot to make it interesting. But if I'm being honest with you, man, I have Georgia running the table as far as their regular season. I think they will go to the conference championship against Alabama, and so that's how I see their direction, their season going. So I don't think that they do tend to slip up against us here and there.
Yeah.
So it's hard to predict an upset, and that sets up great for us. I think, like you said, playing them third is better for us than playing them later because they're not quite on a roll yet. Like Spurrier would say, they might have some guys suspended. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I mean, look, hey, you never know with those Georgia games, man. But you have to be realistic and just assume that they're going to be able to move the ball around on us. And unless Beamer's got some tricks up his sleeve that game, like he's really ready to go, we got everything figured out, Doty's polished, I don't know that it's that competitive, man. I mean, I can see them winning by multiple scores.
Yeah. I think that it should be a blowout win. You know, they are much more better than us as far as just recruiting wise. It's just a bigger team. Like I said, the only thing I think that can go against us, the momentum for the first two games carry over, and we start feeling ourselves, and then Georgia just overestimate us. But like I said before, you can't really predict you can't predict a upset win, like you said. So yeah, it's a loss. I think, say after September 11th, see how Georgia's playing. We can talk again, but right now it's going down as an L.
And man, like on that, like 2 years ago when we beat Georgia, right? And Mukwamu had this like great game. I would have never predicted in a million years. And I'm realistic. Like I'm glad Mukwamu was a Gamecock, right? But like I don't know that we're gonna miss him that much. And you couldn't have predicted that game that he would have had the game he had, right? Just having these 3 interceptions, right? Kind of like just happened to unfold the way it did. There was no reason in theory, like we should have won that game. We had Helinski at quarterback. He's just throwing bombs down the field to Edwards. Like just, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no reason to think that just come out the gate. You're just able to have Doty throwing bombs and you're getting 3 interceptions from who? Cam Smith? I don't, you know what I'm saying? I hope that's the case, man. You know what I'm saying? And maybe there's at least a competitive first half where you can spice things up, shake it up a little bit and do some, call something they're not ready for. But there's no reason, like I said, to expect anything but us to just lose that game, at least by multiple scores, like, 10, 14 points.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a loss right there. 2 more games left to go. And then we'll wrap up. This game right here, you don't have to do a whole lot of talking. Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher got them guys rolling. They should have made the playoffs last year. Was it last year or the year before? I can't remember. Was it last year? It was last year because
they didn't go to the conference championship.
Yeah, but they
lost to Alabama.
They just lost to Alabama. Who they put in there? Did they put like Notre Dame in there or something like that? Who they put? Oh God, it was.
In the playoff. Yeah, Notre Dame.
It was Notre Dame, which should have never been.
They went against Clemson again.
Yeah, they should have never.
I don't get that. I don't get that.
That was.
I would have much rather seen Clemson versus A&M.
That would have been a better game. Like we already see that Trevor Lawrence was out that game. He had COVID. Why?
They could barely handle Clemson with Uyabale. Yeah, without Lawrence there. And the game when I think they played Clemson last year, right? And it was like a close game, like 24-10 or something like that.
They won overtime. They won it.
A&M?
No, not A&M.
Notre Dame. Notre Dame won overtime.
Yeah, it was an overtime win. Clemson could have won actually
without Trevor Lawrence. But I mean, as far as A&M goes, man, they're a very talented team, right? And they got Isaiah Spiller coming back, right? They've got some type of continuity as far as Jimbo Fisher and the guys he wants. The only thing I'm nervous about for them is they lost Kellen Mond, who was like, a 19-year starter? Like he was there forever. You know what I'm saying? Like he was there for a long time. So they lose him, right? And obviously quarterback, people underestimate. I was talking to somebody about this earlier, right? It's like if you ranked all the SEC programs, right, as far as how good their quarterback play has been the last 20 years, right? Like South Carolina is probably like last or second to last, right? A&M's has been not the best in the conference, but it's been good, right? It's always been at least good. Not always like elite, but good. So That's the thing. That's why, like, we've never been able to beat them, even when they had Kenny Hill as quarterback, and we had that opening game against them with Spurrier there. We couldn't. He was throwing like 7 touchdown passes, right? So, like, I don't know who their quarterback's going to be. I know they had, was it Kyler Murray that was there before he went to Oklahoma?
Yeah.
I feel like he played against us one year, right? Kyler Murray did.
Yeah.
Then he went to Oklahoma. So, like, they've always had whoever it is as a guy that can get it done. Even if it was a new guy, like, they figure out a way to get it done. This year, I mean, as long as they can prove that and figure that out, they've got a stacked roster as far as running backs, as far as playmakers, their defense. They've had defensive ends from there, like, just crazy good the last 10, 15 years, whether it was, Von Miller, their offensive line. They've put in all these offensive linemen in the like the first round, second round of the draft, the last 10, 15 years, whether it's Jake Matthews or these other guys, right? They have a lot of guys that they've been putting in the league. Like, the guys are stacked. I'm telling you, like, quarterback plays gonna be important, but I just don't see this as being a game where that's gonna be the deciding factor, unless, like we said earlier, unless Doty comes out and he's the truth from day one. I just don't see a situation, like, because defensive line is the strength of our team, but they're just gonna be solid throughout. Like, they're just gonna have a solid D line, a solid secondary, like solid everything. So I don't know that I see a scenario, no matter who they play at quarterback, that we could win that game. But I tell you what, it'd be a nice one to steal. It would definitely be a nice one to steal, but we'll have to see how it shakes out. Right now, I got it as a loss, and I've got A&M being a pretty impressive team this year. We'll just have to see how their quarterback play goes as far as how far they can go.
I know we're going to steal one. I think with this team right here this year, we're going to steal a game we're not supposed to win. Texas A&M, it's kind of hard for me to see that because it's hard because you can't base it off of what happened last year to kind of carry over to this year. So I can't say because they had momentum last year, all that goes out the window. This is a brand new season. Teams are practicing a lot more. It's not this COVID-stricken year where things were just the wild, wild west and things are chaotic. So that game right there, like we it's after Vanderbilt and it's after Tennessee, after Troy. So we may be on the 3 or 4 game winning streak before we get to this game. So this could easily be a trap game for Texas A&M. But if they're playing like they're supposed to play, they should beat us. They should beat us.
And Jimbo's always been pretty good with quarterbacks, man. Like, I mean, he had Jameis Winston as a freshman, right? And just had him out the gate, like from the very first game was just like reeling, just, you know what I'm saying? And he had him ready in an offseason, who's ready to go.
Yeah.
So, like, I fully expect whoever is quarterback for A&M to be ready to go and then be firing, especially considering they play us a little bit later in the year, like, to be completely ready by then. If they have a game that they lose on the way, that may or may not happen, right? But, I mean, I know they got, like, some tough games. Like, they got Ole Miss, LSU. Like, I was doing my predictions. I didn't know what to do there, man. I'm like, there's a lot of teams a little dangerous in that West. Arkansas is dangerous, right? Like, there's a lot of them in that West I just don't want to play, right, that they have to play. So I can't see them being, like, having a better record than they did last year. But I think they'll be ready by then, and they'll be in mid-season form. And I just don't know that right now, unless we come out there doing some crazy stuff, that they're, that we're going to be able to catch them off guard.
And the injuries too. I want people to understand too. You can't predict injuries. So a lot of times, Texas A&M may be beat up after that, or we may be beat up after that. So these are all predictions that everything goes well. The last game I want to get into, and this game right here is a interesting game. Clemson. They said we got a 5.4% chance of beating Clemson next year. They said they hold more than 94% chance of coming to Columbia November 27 and leave with a victory. So talk about this. Do you think we have a shot against Clemson this year?
A shot is definitely the word that I would use. A shot is definitely it. If you are, especially this schedule goes how I'm predicting it to go, if we're 7-4 and we have Clemson at home, right? Expect that to be an insane environment. Like, right? Like, for them to come at 95%, like, that's just a little bit overzealous to me. I don't know, especially considering they're giving Clemson the benefit of the doubt on a lot of things that they don't have proof on.
Yeah.
Uiagalelei, like, is he very talented? Sure. Do I know he's going to be Trevor Lawrence? I see Clemson fans all the time, but he's even better than Trevor Lawrence. And I'm like, how can you possibly say that? Like they said that about Trevor Lawrence better than Deshaun Watson. Okay, maybe you were right, but you're not going to convince me without seeing him yet. Like I saw him in 2 games where you played, I don't know, maybe Wake Forest or something like that, and they ran over them. And then I saw him lose to Notre Dame. So, like, what do we have? They got Georgia week 1. So, like, we're going to find out week 1 about Clemson. And I think Georgia wins that game. Just putting it out there, right? Now, he may be every bit as talented as people say he is. And that's great, right? That's great for them, whatever. I mean, I hope not, but we'll see, right? But you're going to tell me that if we're 7-4 and Clemson has at least 1 loss, because it's going to be Georgia, I think, right? At least 1 loss, the rest of their schedule is complete cupcake, just completely terrible. Even their division in the ACC is so weak. I mean, they got like the Syracuse of the world over there. They don't have Miami. They don't have North Carolina, right? They have nothing as far as their schedule that I think is a concern. I don't even think they play North Carolina at all or Virginia Tech. Right? I don't think they play – and they might play Miami, but their schedule is just bad, right? So they're gonna lose, in my opinion, lose the opening game and then just run buckshot right through everybody and not have to really have any competition until that last game. And then you have us battle tested all year long, very excited at home to play them. I just think I can't call an upset for this game. I just can't do it, right? Because I'm trying to like control my emotion on this game here. But if you're gonna tell me that's gonna be an easy game for them to win, I can't say that, especially Beamer understands how important that game is. Like he understands. Muschamp didn't put a lot of stock into it. Like he didn't pay much attention to it. He wasn't vested. You know what I'm saying? He was a Georgia guy. He was not vested in that game. Beamer is not going to focus only on that game, but he's going to understand like the meaning of being competitive against them regularly. And that is, I think, what you can expect as a Gamecock fan is if you go in there 7-4 at home, the finale, you didn't play them last year, had the sold out crowd, like you should expect that you can at least give them a fight and be competitive. Like whether it's just the first half, whether it comes down to 1 possession, like I'm going to have it as a loss right now. But if things shake out that way and they're 7-4 or they're 8-3 for that matter, and you're going into that game and they haven't played anybody in 9-10 weeks, it's going to set up to be interesting. And I mean, who knows at that point, man, but I can only hope that it's as interesting as it sounds talking about it, because it definitely sounds like if that's how it shakes out, it's going to be a very fun game to watch.
Yeah, the schedule that I'm looking at right now, like I said, they play Georgia. I believe that's a loss as well. State, they should beat State. The Georgia Tech is laughable. They don't know exactly what, ever since Paul Johnson left, they don't know what they want to be.
Right.
NC State,
no.
Boston College, Syracuse. Syracuse usually does give Clemson
every other year they get like a upset or something, right? They get close.
Yeah, they get close. So Pittsburgh, no. Florida State is
terrible.
Louisville,
that was the one we used to could count on. We used to be like, all right, well, Florida State will take them, and they used to. They ain't done nothing since. I have no reason to think they will now.
But Louisville is not the team that they need to be. UConn, I didn't even know UConn even had a football team. They did, but
right. They're terrible.
Is UConn is they in the ACC now? I thought it was I thought their football team was a Division One.
The fact that we even don't know is just the worst part, right? they play Vanderbilt, and like I'm fully picking Vanderbilt to beat them. Like fully picking Vanderbilt.
Wake Forest, yeah. So this game right here, like I said before, the question that I have with Clemson this year is the fact that Clemson and they grabs of college football, I think, is beginning to dwindle. You can look at their recruiting and the level of recruits they used to get, and now they're not getting no more. I think that Dabo Swinney's voice is not the same. And also colleges are figuring out Clemson and really, with the NIL, it's only so far that you can get the way Clemson's doing it, that they're going to stay the king of the hills for long. Now, in the ACC, they probably going to do damage because there's nobody compete with them in the ACC. But I think they reign of terror when it comes to the playoffs is kind of dwindling down. And I like that game in Columbia because, like I said, the 7-4, 8-3. I mean, we can possibly 8-3, 7-4, but that momentum going in that game, you cannot tell me that we're just gonna lay down in Columbia and let Clemson run all over us when we don't know.
That had to be a night game, I assume, right? So that's going to be just a very, very hostile environment.
Yeah, it's
right.
Like
to go in there and just run over. I don't see that, and they don't have the scary. They got Justin Ross, and I'll give him all that. But ETN's gone, right? Mm-hmm. And Powell is gone, right? Like they have a lot of guys that have left. And granted, they do have, their defensive line is very impressive, right? Like they have a lot of guys they've gotten over the last few years. But like you said, man, recruiting battles that they were winning easily, they're not winning as easily. Now, they still have a great class, and I expect them to have a top 10 class again this year. But them having a top 3 class versus a top 10 class, it can definitely end up being like something that's to watch down the road, because these games they were winning in the playoffs like a couple of years ago where they're beating Alabama, right? Instead, the last couple of times they've been out there, they lost to LSU in the title game, right? They lost to with last year Ohio State, just threw all over them, right?
Yeah.
And then you see the Notre Dame getting the win over them, and that, like, I'm just saying, the last few times they've been on the big stage, they have lost, right? Like I lost. So, and when they beat Ohio State 2 years ago, to me, that was a game that they really stole from Ohio State, because Ohio State should have won that game too. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of benefits of the doubt being given to them, like assuming that they're going to figure it out without knowing that they have the dudes to figure it out, right? So like their schedule is very easy. I can see all that, but I can fully see them being, a situation where they come into this game super overconfident and not really realizing how good their team is, because the first team they played that was good, they lost. They didn't play anyone else, right? And then they came into this game super overconfident. Like, I would not be shocked if that was a competitive game for sure.
And if I run the game, I think that this game right here is going to be something special, because, like I said, Shane Beamer gets it. These players gets it. I think the players understand. Like, look, man, it's been 5 or 6 years since we beat Clemson last year. It was the COVID year that we didn't play each other, which was stupid, but still, I think that Shane Beamer and the South Carolina Gamecocks are coming. And I think the Clemson, the chokehold that Clemson had not only on the state but also national rankings is dwindling. I'm not saying that next year they're gonna be off the map, but I look at it like this: if they don't have the season they're going to have, Dabo Swinney is not going to lose his job. I mean, he's pretty much secure for life at Clemson. They're not going to kick him out anyway. But you start to see, like, look, man, this quarterback is not who they say he is. It's very rare that you get a Deshaun Watson and a Trevor Lawrence back to back. It was a reason why what was the quarterback before Trevor? No, it wasn't no Todd Boyd.
Kelly Bryant.
Kelly Bryant, yes. I was gonna say Brian Kelly. Kelly Bryant. There's a reason why Kelly Bryant was benched for Trevor Lawrence, because Dabo saw and knew that he couldn't get it done against bigger and better competition. Yeah, you can go 10-1 at this schedule easily. But when it comes to playing a team like South Carolina, and maybe, and like I said, we're not the most elite team of the SEC yet, but I think a lot of those guys, the coaching staff, the players on the team have something to prove. And I think that if they don't come correct, I can see where we're running the ball slap down their throat, and we're sending Clemson back in the upstate with their tails tucked in. But like I said, I don't see us winning, but I'm like, man, I'm just like chumping
circle it, right? Like, you're like, if things go a certain way, like, you can definitely feel that game and the vibes building up to it, right? Because they don't have the guys either. Like, in my opinion, offensively, they don't have the guys to overcome small things. Like last year when the Notre Dame game came, right? Trevor Lawrence was out. If that happens this year and Uiagalelei is not available, or he goes down, they don't have ETN, right? They've got Justin Ross, who already had an ACL injury or whatever, right, last year. So, like, do I think they're going to run through these teams, or South Carolina for that matter, if they don't have him there? Like, I have no reason to think that that's the case, right? Like, the defensive line's great. They're always going to put, like, Venables has got the defense doing like great things over there and all that. But like, I think they put 70 on Georgia Tech last year, right? Like, do I see that happening again this year? No. So the gap is still a massive gap, but like, it only takes a year or two of things like switching for the perspective to go, hey, look, this is not like the end all be all. This team is overconfident and they're losing two games a year, 3 games a year. And this other team, the same state, is competitive and they've got this energy going, right? They're getting recruits, they're getting momentum. And then you see that gap kind of like just narrow a little bit. And then that's when you get like a territory where I could fully see next year, if we have a successful season this year, right? And we have energy and more recruits coming, all that, you have an identity. I could fully see that being the year where you can flip the script on Clemson and you can get a win. And then you see a lot of like, byproduct of that, what happens after, right? The aftermath of beating them and what that can do to kind of shift things a little bit. That's what it's going to be. That's what the blueprint for flipping the script on Clemson is going to be. Like, you're going to have to win some of those recruiting battles against them, right? And you're going to have to actually be able to beat them in a game. And I don't know that that's this year, but if things go a certain way, like, you could definitely see it, right, in a vision where you can see that happening next year, or, you know what I'm saying, later on. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But like we said earlier, man, like, if they come out scoring a bunch of points every game and being this offense that lights it up, and Doty is this, untapped potential of a quarterback, like, we just don't know. And it's going to be really hard to predict how that could look, what the team would look like, what their team will look like by the end of next season, or by the end of this season rather. So I don't know. I'm very excited regardless to play them. And I think every fan is, whether we think we're going to lose or not. I think it's just going to be a very exciting atmosphere situation building up to.
Cool, man. Cool, man. I'm excited. So 7-5. I agree with that. I said 7-5. Looks like it. I said 8 wins with a bowl. And that's where you're at as well. 7, 8 wins in the bowl. Heck, we make it even win 9 games with the bowl. It just depends on that Kentucky game. But so what is your best case scenario? What is your worst case scenario?
Yeah, so my best case scenario is, like, I said and I don't know if I actually said them all in this video, right? But like, my top 5 most important games for us was Tennessee, Kentucky, Eastern Carolina, Missouri, and Auburn.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have 3 games that you should definitely win in Eastern Illinois, Troy, and Vanderbilt. Eastern Illinois, Troy, East Carolina, Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you win those 4, right, you're guaranteed 4. I think that's the floor, right? Because these games are not, the 5 are not guaranteed wins. They're very much like toss-up-ish, or like you should or you shouldn't win by a possession. So those things are going to really come down to a lot of factors. So I think the floor is 4. I think realistically you expect out of those 5 to win at least 1, right? So I'm thinking 8 wins and then a bowl game, right? 1 and 9 wins is going to be the best case scenario, right? Given the information we have. Worst case is going to be 4 to 5 wins, right? I think 5, even a Gamecock fan, like, if you asked an Arkansas fan last year, if you said, hey, look, y'all are going to go, what they go like 3-7 or something like that.
Yeah.
But you're going to be like an inch from beating Auburn, right? And you're going to be competitive in all these games. They would say, we'll take that under 1 year of Sam Pittman because we like him. We're with him. We believe what he's doing, right? So I think and that's in a shortened season. Like, I think the Arkansas is a bowl team last year if they play a full schedule. So if we can copy that model, because I don't like the comparisons to Dabo, right? I'd rather stick with the Sam Pittman thing.
Yeah.
Right? Sam Pittman's off the radar, but he looks like a Razorback, for crying out loud, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? He looks like a hog. Like, he fits the whole culture they built over there. So if you told a South Carolina fan, hey, look, man, you're going to get in year 1 of Shane Beamer, a offense that you think is dynamic, at least has an identity that's not like archaic, but it's like got an identity. And you get a defense that plays tough, just doesn't quite have the guys yet, but it plays tough and it plays hard, right? And you're going to get some scrappiness out of them. you're not going to feel like you're underperforming every year and you're not getting enough out of these guys and you're getting 5 wins, but the games are close, then you're going to have this optimistic feeling of going, you know what, we were a little bit, but we were this close to getting 6, 7, 8 wins. Next year we'll flip the script. I think that anywhere in that range is going to be acceptable to a fan as long as the style of play, right? The manner in which you win or lose games is going to be important, because I would much rather lose 5 games by, 3 points than, lose 4 games, but those 4 I got blown out by 40. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can wrap my head around it as a fan. Year one, the expectation, just, it's unfair to put all that pressure on him, right? So, I mean, I can see it if he's ready, but we just don't know enough about him to know. We love him and we got his back. Like, we're ready for it. You know what I'm saying? We support him, but it's just going to be very hard, with all the conditions we have right now. We're going to have to see if he can win some of these battles. I'm waiting on a couple of welcome homes, man, to see how we'll be sitting for the following season. But I'm excited to see what he's going to be building this offseason and the ones to come.
It's going to be very interesting. And, definitely throughout the season, I'm going to definitely have you on. We both going to chop it up, man. I'm personally excited myself because I think Gamecock Nation, Shane Beamer wasn't our first choice because we didn't really know him. I didn't even know he was a part of the staff, until they were saying it. I was like, oh, okay. And then the more he talks, the more the players buys in. I think he gets it. I think he gets this new generation. And I think that for the South Carolina, he has a vision for the program. A lot of coaches that came in, I think Steve Spurrier fit the program the way that he saw fit until he just ran out of gas. And I think, Will Muschamp didn't really have a vision for it. I think Shane Beamer saw that, saw the atmosphere, knew that it could happen. And, I think year one is probably the best way because recruits are looking. If we have a 7, even a 6, 7, 8 win season, I think people even if we win 5 games, that's an improvement from the last 2 years.
Right.
Even if we don't go for a bowl win, we win 5 games. Last year we won 2. The year before that we won 4. So we can move forward. So Don, man, before I let you go, man, let the people know exactly where they can find you at.
Yeah, man. So Facebook, definitely at Hustle and Crow, right? Obviously, like I said, a shout out to Chris Phillips and his thing, Spurs Up Show. I do a lot of writing for him as well. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. Facebook, Don and Cunningham. I go by Don, but you can definitely find me on there. And YouTube, Hustle and Crow as well. And definitely want to say, man, I appreciate you having me on. Always love listening to the entertainer, the motivator, and the educator, man. So thanks for having me on, man. I promise you I love the content, man.
Don, man, thank you so much as well, man. We was here, chop it up. So YouTube family, you guys gonna see this, man. Thank y'all so much for the opportunity. Don, thank you so much. He's an entertainer, motivated, educator. Again, Lucky Murray back with another. Hey, man, I don't know what I need to call this, but this is gonna be something, man. I got my man Don Cunningham from Hustle and Crow, done some writing for the Spurs Up Show, a much respected podcast spirit in the Gamecock Nation. But for everybody that's watching at home,
so thank you if you made it this far and you watched the whole thing. Let me know what you think about the situation. It's a full breakdown right there in the comment section below. Also subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I try to drop content every single day. It works out that way. So again, it's the entertainment of the educator, Lucky Murray, back with another Gamecock in the nosebleed. We talk Carolina sports, the full breakdown right there. So let me know what y'all think about it. That conversation below. But like always, it's the next time, people.